Bruce, I was doing some extensive research on Iwo Jima,
yes.
and it is, and I've actually got part of the story written. Your dad was a Marine, and this was one of the pivotal or gruesome and battles where American casualties actually exceeded those of the Japanese, and your father was actually one of these greatest battles. How do you reflect back on that? And it's, you know, when you say Iwo Jima, you ask a Marine about that, or even a sailor.
It's interesting that you raise that because long after my father died, almost 30 years ago, I was able to get his service records and trace every ship he sailed on from San Diego at Camp Pendleton to Iwo Jima and back. And I found out he landed on D+4 65 years ago on LST 808. I went online, I found a survivors reunion group of the Navy personnel who served on that landing ship Tank, which was later sunk off of Okinawa by a kamikaze plane. And I called this gentleman up who lived in Decatur, Illinois. I explained who I was, and he started crying on the phone. And he said, we were just a bunch of dumb, young Navy sailors, and we gave those Marines such a hard time on the ship before we dropped them off, and we had no idea how few of them were coming home. I mean, this stuff is just powerful. It's very emotional for me to talk about. My brother works at a VA hospital in Knoxville, and 13 years after my dad died, a veteran saw his name tag and told him about working with my dad after the war, and my dad relating an experience where a friend of him was hit by a direct shell and basically obliterated. And I was able to get a book written by the commanding officer of the Marine Corps Artillery on Iwo Jima. My dad served in the headquarters and service battery. The first night they were on Iwo Jima, they came under heavy barrage, and 35 members of that unit were killed or wounded. So it starts to personalize why we owe so much to our veterans and why services, particularly mental health services for returning veterans who've served in combat, are so important.
Well, especially now, Bruce.
Especially now. Because if you look at the type of combat our Iraq and Afghanistan veterans are exposed to, in many ways, even though they're completely different theaters, it's very similar to Iwo Jima, where the enemy was buried underground in tunnels and caves. And so it was the unexpected trauma from surprise attacks, which is what you see with veterans now who are exposed to IEDs planted alongside a road that are ignited by remote control.